In this Killing Floor 3 video, we're going to be going over what has been a very polarizing launch for a game that I was not expecting to be quite so polarizing, but here we are. The only other game that I can think has been more polarizing has been Battlefield 6, but that seems to be on a bit of a turnaround, but I digress. That's not the whole point of this video. Basically, what I wanted to do is up front, I wanted to say that I am new to the franchise, so I'm coming at it from the lens of a new player. I'm not a purist of the game like a lot of you are, so that's something to keep in mind, is that I've played a little bit of the second game and none of the first game, so I'm coming at this from a new player that has enjoyed horde shooters, and that's what I make a living on from this channel. So the other thing I wanted to contribute up front here is that I am enjoying the game. I just wanted to say that out there. I think this is actually a good idea for a video game. I mean, there's tons of things to do, tons of things to work for. Classes are interesting and unique, and the gameplay loop is fairly fun. I haven't really gotten bored yet. I'm quite a bit of hours in already, and I've been enjoying my time with this so far. It doesn't come without its gripes, though. I do have some complaints and some things that I don't really like about the game so far, and some things that I would like to see fixed, and there's just some things I don't think can be fixed. So that's basically what this video is designed to do, is to go over the good, bad, and ugly of my first impressions with the game so far. So essentially, we're going to start off with talking about the performance first and the optimization, just because that's one of the most polarizing things so far in the beginning of the game's life cycle. Then we're going to talk about the objectively good and bad things about the game, the subjectively good and bad things, and then lastly, we're going to finish up with my recommendation for the game and whether I think you should be buying this game or not. Anyways, let's talk about it. All right, so taking a look at performance first, basically this is my first game that I went into. So I go in, and then all of a sudden my screen shrinks super small. I try to fix it, and then all of a sudden my whole system basically goes crazy, hard locks, and I have to restart it. After that, it was fine. I didn't really have too many issues. I had to make some changes in the game and it was fine. So overall, I ended up ironing out those issues there, but that's little things I've been dealing with since I started playing the game. Between random disconnects from hosts leaving or something like that will just crash the whole game, to the fact that the game is not well optimized, which I'll get into some of those optimization thoughts here in just a moment. But in general, the game is just a bit choppy with the way it performs, and there's just some minor little things. That was definitely my first experience, which was not a good one, of having the game completely break up on me. So anyway, basically after that, I ended up starting to play the game, and I decided to start tracking the statistics, meaning the frames per second, CPU usage, GPU usage. I do that a little bit when I first getting into new games, and I was pretty shocked to see that with a 4080, a 7800X 3D, 64 gigs of RAM at 4K on only high settings, I was getting 50 frames and less per second, which was ridiculous. And that was just in the ship area. That wasn't even in the game. Like, I could definitely feel after a couple of games that the game is kind of sluggish, which is why I wanted to check out the statistics a little bit more. And yeah, I was pretty shocked to see that I was less than 50 frames, which was not really the greatest. So I go into the settings, and then I actually end up enabling, not only making sure that DLS quality is on, but I also enable frame generation. Frame generation gave me an extra like 20 plus frames per second just out of the gate, which was nice. So now instead of being at 40 to 50, I was more at like 60 to 70, maybe even 80 at times, depending on the planet. But that was not consistent with every game though. On the ship, I was getting good frames. I go into the maps. Some maps ran well with respectable frames, 60 frames, and then other maps I was getting as little as 30 frames. So it's clear that the game has some issues on the engine side, and I'm not sure if it has to do with the CPU bound aspect, because they came out and said that the game is very CPU heavy, and it makes sense. There's so many things going on. People are using different types of weapons and whatnot, and also there's different types of zombies, and they're doing different things and whatnot. So it's understandable that the game is very CPU heavy, but I'm running a 7800X 3D. That's not a slouch of a CPU, and I shouldn't be having this many performance issues because I was maximizing my GPU utilization, and then my CPU was not overloaded. So I don't know what the issues are there, but this game definitely needs some optimization fixes, and that's pretty apparent. Now, the odd thing is that with games like this, typically when I see this, and this happened with Darktide, that's why this kind of phones home to me so much, is that typically with games like this, when they have performance issues out of the gate, especially matchmaking issues or things of that nature, I typically will set the game aside because I don't want it to ruin my experience of the game. And I did that with Darktide, and now I'm loving the hell out of Darktide because I gave it time to bake a little bit longer. With this game, I was nervous with all the performance issues that was going to happen for me, but the gameplay loop is so fun, and when I'm in the game, I'm focused on the enemies, focused on the encounters, leveling up my weapons, doing whatever. I barely noticed that the game is running at below standard, in my opinion, what it should be. So that's a good thing because it shows that the gameplay loop and the intricacies of the game are good enough to keep my interest in terms of distracting me from the performance issues. So that's a good thing because there's some games where I just can't. I notice the performance issues, I'm sick of crashing, all these various things like that. So luckily this game's issues with that side of it are not enough to like make me want to just run away and play something else, right? So that's good. So performance is something they can fix over time, and they will, and I just hope it's sooner rather than later because it's a bit rough, especially with all these various PCs and whatnot. I imagine a lot of people are gonna have some issues, but I'm definitely curious. Just in the front part of this video, I want to know what type of rig are you running with this game and what has been your experience with performance, because again, I'm running a 4080 with a 7800X 3D. My system is a very expensive system, high-end system. I play games at 4K all the time, never have issues, so I'm wondering what everybody else is dealing with on the performance side. But that's my overall thoughts of performance. It's not the best, but it hopefully will get better over time. Let's talk about the objective things about the game that I think are good. So progression in the class system is good. It's called perks in this game, not classes. I don't quite know why, but again, we're gonna go with it. But the various perks or classes, as you want to call them, are very interesting. I was tempted to go medic as my first one because I like the idea of healing, and it seems like there's definitely a shortage of medics, so I'm probably going to level that one up next because a lot of groups that I've been going into, because I've been mainly playing random, have been short on medics, so I'm definitely going to work on that one next. But I ended up going with Firebug as my first one because I wanted to try something different. I'm a big fan of like damage over time type characters in video games. I was a big Warlock user in World of Warcraft and things of that nature, so I like things like that where they deal some sort of affliction or damage over time. And Firebug is really unique because you get flamethrowers and whatnot, which we'll go over in just a moment. But one of the things that I like the most about the perk system, and one thing I was concerned about, and it's going to get even better with the various roadmap and whatnot as they showed, is that the characters do commingle. So essentially, if you want to run different utility items, you can. For example, one thing I like to do is I like to run the multi-tool with the Firebug because I like to be able to turn on the various zip lines and turrets and things like that on the map for our team to be able to use. So I think that's quite a valuable thing to have. The skills in this game are extremely interesting. So we have a ton of different skills to choose from here, which is great. Each level has different options, and I like how you can seamlessly change between them without costing resources, which is great. And each one of them has a upgradable path, which is really cool as well. So basically, like this one, for example, I take 10% less burning damage, and then I could upgrade that to 15 later, which is really cool. And I like, again, how the Firebug really dives into dealing damage over time and truly enhancing that. That's pretty much my play style, is I want to apply a lot of affliction dot damage onto things, which is why I'm thinking about using other weapons that can add more status effects like the shotgun and stuff like that, to be able to add more status effects with different rounds and whatnot, which we'll get into in just a moment. But essentially, I am enjoying quite a bit the synergy between the various classes, the various things that we can do, the commingling a little bit, and over time, again, as the roadmap suggests, we're going to be able to do that even more, similar to the other games, because I know in the other games you can commingle these even more, which is pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that as well. I spoke about weapons and gadgets and things of that nature. So each character has very unique weapons, and you can commingle these as well with the other characters if you would like, but each character has their very unique weapons. Like the ninja is outfitted with all sorts of ninja things. You got ninja stars and bows and swords and things of that nature, which is cool. The sharpshooter obviously has marksman type rifles and sniper rifles and things of that nature. And then of course the Firebug has different flame type weapons. Like this particular starting weapon does set the ground on fire or sets enemies on fire, which is cool. Got a Dragon's Best shotgun that we can equip with different rounds that will change the status effect as well. Particularly a big fan of this Enfeeble round. It is pretty cool because it basically applies slowing debuffs and things like that to enemies, which is really cool, and I can't wait to actually try that a little bit more. But essentially what I've been really investing into is the flamethrower, because I've been enjoying applying burn damage and things like that to enemies, and it does a lot of damage. And then this Vulcan has been actually really cool as well. So one thing I'm enjoying about the weapons quite a bit is that they have multiple fire modes. Not every single one of them do. Some of them bash or things of that nature, but for example, this Vulcan has two different fire modes. The first fire mode is this charged up bomb thing, so you're going to shoot that, and then it's going to shoot a little bomb thing. or you can switch it and then boom, it's going to be able to be a flamethrower. So I find that extremely cool is that each weapon has different firing modes. You can enhance these through different weapon attachments and things of that nature, which is very cool. So basically talking about that a little bit more, if I go into the armory here, you can go in and you can actually do custom loadout. So we're going to actually take a look at the custom loadout that I've done for the brimstone. So if I go in here, I've actually got different attachments that I've added onto this weapon. I've added these phosphorus rounds, which essentially will make the weapon do more burning damage over time and deals more damage as well, and applies more panic infliction, which makes enemies kind of freak out a little bit more when you're hitting them, which is cool. As well as I applied a drum magazine to get more ammo. And the cool thing about it is that these attachments can be upgraded as well. So if you actually right click here like I'm doing, you can upgrade these to different levels, and over time you'll get a bonus ability that actually does benefit your team or your player. An example being is that if you go over to this flamethrower, for example, it will actually have the slow tick receiver. I've actually upgraded to maximum. So you can see that it actually provides a bonus ability where teammates within 10 meters gain 5% chance to gain 5 armor back after killing enemies. This is extremely useful, especially for some of the harder difficulties. You just have to be near your allies and they will continue to gain bonus armor as enemies are dying. And because there are so many enemies at any given time, it's going to be proccing quite a bit. So that's cool. So I really do enjoy that with this game, is that each weapon has unique attachments, and all these attachments will provide some sort of bonus ability once you reach maximum with them. So I find that insanely useful, and you can have multiple loadouts. So essentially when you're going into a game, what happens, and the reason why you want to create loadouts in the first place, is that there's a buy station, very similar to like Warzone or games that you've played with buy stations. So you go in with basic stuff and then you can upgrade to the upper level things that you've created during the game because you earn currency during the game. And the cool thing is that, like, for example, this Mark 1 Incinerator, which I've called it, I can buy that maybe like at round 2 or 3 and be able to use it for the rest of the game, and then I have a much more powerful weapon to be able to use on a regular basis. Or I can use this Mark 1 Brimstone and then I can use that for the rest of the game as well. So I just like that. It makes it very unique because you're not going in with all these juiced up weapons and whatnot. You kind of gotta start off with the lower end stuff and then work your way up. I find that quite interesting, and I do like that system for the weapons and whatnot. Something else I really appreciate about this game is the codex. Usually things like this I don't really pay attention to because they're full of mostly tutorial level things, but this one is actually very in-depth with what it shows you. So you can go in here and you can actually look at damage types, for example, and see what the different damage types do. Like we have biological, which is more effective against flesh and mire units, so that's actually very useful information. So if we go over to the enemies tab, or the Z tab, we can actually see what the enemies are weak to. So basically you can see down at the bottom that this clot enemy is weak to biological, so I'm going to want to bring in more biological weapons. Then we can look at the crawler larva, which is weak to fire, and it has different things like that. So I like this. I love the codex because it actually allows me to think about the way I'm going to build my loadouts to be able to fit any situation whenever I'm going into it. So if I go into a situation and I know I'm going against the bloater enemies, I'm going to want to bring in something with the damage type, which is the cut. I want to be able to bring in cut, which is going to be do more flesh damage, so I can do that. Same thing with like some of the bosses. You can see like the queen crawler is weak to fire and biological, so I'm going to want to bring in some biological and flame weapons. You can also use the codex to come in here and look at things like the various things in the game, like the zip lines or the multi-tool and what it does and whatnot, because this will activate various things on the map as well. And I like this. I love getting too much information in video games, because I find in a lot of video games that we play these days, we're relying on wikis and other third-party sources, and the game doesn't give us all the information we need. And this is one thing I like about this game, is just between the codex and actually going in and looking at the weapons themselves from the various attachments and things like that, you get tons of information, so that way you can actually analyze exactly how well the things perform and what to use against them. So that's one thing that I really very much appreciate about this game, is the level of detail they go into to give us the information that we need to be able to be successful in a game right here in the game itself, which is very nice. A couple of other brief things that I find very interesting about this game that are objectively good overall is that we have a ton of different missions and objectives and things that like that to work for. For example, we have weekly operative missions that rotate. So this one is deal biological damage, which is cool, and they're class specific. So that way you can know that, okay, well, I need to do some missions with my medic class or my firebug class or the ninja class or something like that, so you can actually know which ones you need to do to. And then there's this pretty cool little thing where you actually are doing missions as well while you're in the game, and I'm not sure exactly how far this goes. I'm currently on 7 out of 8, so I imagine it stops at 8, but I find that pretty cool. There's like a mission going on while you're in a game as well, because you'll see it prompt up. You gotta do a little activity and stuff like that, and the good thing is that it doesn't require cutscenes or anything extra. You're literally just doing this activity that may take place during the whole mission, but it's not disrupting enough to the group so you're actually not able to support, which I think is pretty cool as well. Talking about missions very briefly, because I can go on about this forever, is that we do get a fair amount of missions. It's not a lot, so you are going to get a bit burned out after a while playing the same missions over and over again. But the cool thing is that you can actually enhance the difficulty up to Hell on Earth. Hard is actually pretty difficult. I feel like with hard, you're going to need a team of communicating people, especially medics and things like that, to stay alive. But I've been mainly playing normal to do with randoms and whatnot. I find that to be the easiest. But you also have this weekly mutation, which is going to give you bonus resources and be quite a bit of a challenge. So again, that's probably something you'd bring a team for. There's quite a few different missions, but when you're actually in the missions, there's quite a lot going on. Again, like I mentioned before, you are going to be fighting waves of zombies. You're going to be needing to upgrade your equipment as you're going as well. You're going to need to be resupplying and stuff like that, so you're going to have to play this balancing game of sharing currency with your allies and whatnot, which is something else I find really good, is that you can share your currency and whatnot, so that's very good as well. And then also, while you're in the maps, you're actually going to go through 5 different rounds, and then on the 6th round you're going to face a boss, and the boss enemies are very challenging. I know that the impaler enemies come in packs of 3, and they are very challenging to deal with, and then you got the other ones as well that are very challenging. So I like that, because it's actually going to offer some sort of a challenge at the end that you can beat or lose to. In terms of the way missions are and how you operate, they are going to get a bit stale after a while, but for now I think that they are quite fun. Now we're going to jump into some of the bad things, or some of the things that are kind of questionable, that I'm not really quite vibing with so far. So objectively, the roadmap is bleak. It doesn't look very interesting. Like, we have a new character and some things going on, but that's for the rest of 2025, and 2026 is going to get some things, but the roadmap looks very, very boring and kind of bleak, and it reminds me very much of Dark Tide and Space Marines 2, where it's going to be okay in the start, but then we're going to quickly run out of content and things like that, and it's going to just fickle out, and it's going to really be the core base, which is fine to a degree, because I don't know how much of a live service game they're trying to be, Tripwire is trying to be, but at the same time, I'm like looking at it like, it just doesn't look like there's much content coming to the game very soon, at least. And I get it, it's literally the second day of the game, but I'm also looking at it like, dude, once I level up all the characters and once I get to the point where everything's maxed out, which is, you know, let's say 50 to 100 hours, I don't know, like the roadmap is not very exciting to get me to want to like drive to play the game more, but that's one of the biggest things I'm kind of concerned about. I kind of like blah. This particular thing is fresh in my mind because I've been playing so much Firebug, but the flame from the flamethrowers is awful. It's probably the worst flamethrower I've ever seen in a video game, at least since the PS2 era. It's literally bad. It's just a stream of orangeness. Doesn't feel like fire. It doesn't have that like feeling of burning things. I don't know, it looks terrible. It's not very good at all, so they gotta fix that pretty quickly, in my opinion. Going back to performance a little bit, so dead enemies remaining on the map, continuing to move, like you'll see dead bodies and stuff like that floating in the sky. I think that some of that is kind of contributing to some of the performance issues, so that's definitely not only immersion breaking, but it's also, again, leading to some performance issues overall. The balancing of the enemies is a bit lopsided at times. Some enemies are just far tankier than others, and that's fine. I don't mind doing that. I need to come up with the equipment and the things to deal with them. That's perfectly fine, but sometimes I'm just like, dude, this guy is taking way too much freaking damage. I don't quite understand why he's like a big bullet sponge. Some of the bosses are like that too, where they're just bullet sponges. They're moving around like hyper aggressive, hard to hit, and they're just not taking very much damage. So in a solo experience, I can imagine it's a little bit more rough, but I guess it comes with the territory of like, okay, is it just a skill issue at this point, or the enemies just need a little bit more balancing? And I'm leaning toward the enemies need a little bit more balancing, because even in those earlier stages of leveling, you should have some decent counters in place, and we should know the counters in place for some of these enemies. But at this particular second, I'm kind of like, some of the enemies could use a little bit better balancing overall. I'm going to get into a couple of subjective things that I feel like are bad about the game as well. So the in-game shop is just awful. I know some people may find it fine, but I don't really like it. And it's not because I'm a hater of in-game shops or microtransactions. I mean, of course, I don't love them, but they're in games. We can't get away from them. But at least make me tempted to want to buy the things. All the things in the past and whatnot look ugly. I mean, they're brown, they're not really appealing, they're not colorful. Like some of the ones in the shop, meaning the ones you can buy with real money or the in-game currency, are fine, you know what I mean, because they have some color to them. But the ones that you get from the battle pass that you have to buy as well, all of them are just brown and boring. They don't look good at all, in my opinion. Another subjective thing that I don't really like about this game, and I hope that they do add later, but I'm not sure if they will. I just haven't had enough experience with the franchise to really determine if it's just a vibe of the game. But I would like some lighter maps. Maybe it doesn't have to be full on daytime, but maybe it could be dusk or in more well-lit environments. Like some of them are pretty good, but sometimes I'm just like, dude, it's freaking dark. Can I play in a light map for once? Maybe have some sort of other effects going on outside of just dark and rainy. I mean, I don't know. I want something else to look at outside of just darkness overall. Another subjective thing I like about the game is that you don't have to go to all the various terminals to access everything that you need to get to. Like you can access the play map to be able to go to a mission if you want, access your character, access the armory, assignments, whatever you want. You can just press one button and access everything. There's so many games like Helldivers 2, for example, that require you to go to all these various terminals, and it's kind of annoying to have to do that, even though I know it's maybe immersion breaking, but sometimes I just want an efficient gameplay experience. Something else objective I really like is I like the weapon inspections. Man, this thing is freaking cool. Being able to have all these different weapon inspections, it must have taken them a ton of time to come up with all these, because every weapon in the game has some sort of unique inspection, and I quite like that a lot. Something else that I really appreciate about the game is just the amount of gore and the amount of things that are going on when you're actually killing enemies. They're exploding, they're catching on fire and dying, they're corroding to acid, being frozen. You can also do finishers on enemies and whatnot. I quite like that a lot, that there's so many different ways to kill enemies, and they're quite unique when they do die. So that's actually a really, really cool addition to the game as well. Now that we've talked about the objective and subjective good and bad things about the game that I think so far, I want to talk about my recommendation for the game and whether I think you should buy it or not. So short and sweet, this game is a buggy ass mess, but it's also a really, really fun buggy mess. I've had an absolute blast playing with friends, playing with randoms. It's been really fun. I've been immersed into the environment, leveling my character, trying to figure out a build that's gonna work. That's quite enjoyable to be able to do, but I won't lie. If you don't like performance issues, or if you're not a big fan of random crashes and things like that, or it's just kind of breaking your gameplay experience, you may want to give this some time for it to come up with a few patches, so that's something to keep in mind there. But really, it's up to you. I think if you like horde shooters like Space Marines, Dark Tide especially, you're going to really like this game. If you like Helldivers 2, you're going to really like this game, because there's tons of progression already baked in with the different talent trees, different classes and whatnot. All the weapons are fully customizable. All the attachments are upgradable. There's tons of different build crafting opportunities. The missions are unique enough, and random events and modifiers will happen to kind of spice it up a little bit. And as you get into the harder difficulties, you'll have to challenge yourself with new encounters and whatnot. So from a horde shooter perspective, this is a solid game just from my experience overall. And again, once they fix the performance issues, I feel like it will be even better and more tolerable overall. But I'm not gonna lie to you, the longevity of this game is something I really do question, because the roadmap is not very exciting or something that I'm looking forward to. It's more or less like, okay, you said 2025 for this small amount of content. Is this it? Are you gonna provide anything else? Are there gonna be random events like we see in Dark Tide, or what the hell is gonna go on? I don't know what your actual plan is for longevity for the game. And I do find the game becoming quite stale. I think that what's going to happen is people are going to invest 50 to 100 hours. Some hardcore people are going to level up all the characters, and then they're going to get burned out and want to move on to something else. Something else is going to come out. Battlefield, Arc Raiders, whatever. They're going to get distracted. So I don't know what's going to be the thing that's going to hold people into playing this game, but for this particular time, late July into August and things like that, as we get into gaming season, this game is really fun, and I think you should actually give it a shot if you haven't. If you want to just buy it on Steam or whatever platform you can and just get a refund if you don't like it after playing an hour, do it. But I do think if you like horde shooters, this is worth a shot. But all right, that's all my thoughts on my first impressions of playing Killing Floor 3. Let me know what you guys think about this video down in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content similar to this. But anyways, I'll catch you in the next video.